over-leveraged banks, lax credit ratings, all of those share blame for causing the financial crisis, but some see a much bigger cause of the problem. John Perkins is the author of Hoodwinked, an economic hitman reveals why the world financial markets imploded and what we need to do to remake them. Great to have you with us.
Good to be with you too, Amanda. Thank you.
John, we've talked to you in the past about your book, Tales of an Economic Hitman. In this case, you're talking about something that you call predatory capitalism, that I think you were really talking about in your first book as being the root of what went wrong here. Explain to us what that is.
Well, you know, it's really been around since 1970. In the 1970s, when I was an economic hitman, we used this form of capitalism overseas, and then it really took hold in places like Canada and the United States. When Ronald Reagan became president and adopted its principles, and Thatcher in England and so on. And it's based on the theories that Milton Friedman, the Chicago School of Economics, really espoused. And one of those is that the only responsibility of business is to maximize profits, regardless of the environmental and social costs. And two, businesses shouldn't be regulated very much, minimize regulation. Three, privatize everything, let private business run everything. And this has brought us to a very, very dangerous situation in the world today, which is what we're seeing. It is the structural causes behind this terrible recession that we're in. And until we turn that around, we're going to continue to find ourselves sliding into these recessions. We'll come out of them and we'll go back in.
The problem with that thinking, though, is that, you know, it's the sort of sausage being made story. You love to eat it, you don't like to watch it being made. Capitalism breeds volatility, and that's okay. Deal with it is what we should all have to do. And you're suggesting, no, there's a better route with regulation being the top agenda item. Do you really believe that's good for the economy, given the success the U.S. has had over the last 200 years, unregulated?
No, the United States has been very regulated up until recently. For the first 100 years of our history, Kevin, no corporation would get a charter in the United States unless it could prove it was serving the public interest. Charters lasted on average for 10 years, and then you had to go back and demonstrate you had served the public interest before you could get another charter. That ended in the late 1800s when the Supreme Court decided that corporations had all the rights and none of the responsibilities of individuals. I really think, I think we need to go back into something that says that corporations do need to serve a public interest. There's nothing wrong with making profits. We should make profits. I'm a capitalist. I'm a total capitalist. But profits should be made within the context of being socially and environmentally responsible. Now look what we're seeing with BP right now and so many other instances. We do need regulations. I'm not for extensive regulations at all, but corporate executives need to be regulated just like everybody else. We've been clearly seeing that in the last few years.
John, one of the problems that you were revealing in Economic Hitman was the way in which the wealthy, especially in the developed world, can exploit the unwealthy, and that's in the developing world. In this case, it's almost like we've been having a great party with a bunch of free cocaine, and now we're kind of sitting around saying, maybe this hasn't been a great idea. But all of the rest of the world is saying, we're going to have our cocaine and then we'll decide if we don't like it. How do we turn off the taps of predatory capitalism before they've had their chance to party?
Well, I don't think they're looking at it quite that way. For example, in South America, we're seeing we've now got 10 presidents who've been democratically elected who are saying, we want to exploit our resources and we want international companies to come in and help us take out our gas and our oil. But we want to make sure that a larger percentage of the profits goes to our people, the people who sit on the soil. And we want to make sure that that our mountains and our oceans and our rainforests are protected. So we need more regulations on these industries. They're saying, you know, we don't need foreign aid. We've got the resources. We just want to be able to use them without having them essentially plundered from us, which they're saying has happened in the past. So I think that what they're looking for is an opportunity to raise their own poor people up by their bootstraps without turning to us for help, but saying, let's do it within the capitalist system.
Isn't there a fundamental problem, though? If you start to regulate American-based companies, it's challenging because most of their competition comes globally now. This is the first year ever where there's more billion-dollar market cap companies outside of North America than in it. And now American companies have to fight it out with global economies that are growing 3 times faster. They don't need more regulation. They need to be less regulated so they can compete in countries where they have regulations set back in the 40s and 50s. Think about China. They can build a coal plant anywhere they want.
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head, Kevin. There's a conflict here. There's no question. But there's two aspects of this. We do need regulations. We need to keep people under control because we've seen the corporate executives, just like the rest of us, can do things wrong. We have to protect ourselves against pickpockets and thieves out on the street, and there are corporate executives who will do that. We've seen that. So we do need the regulations. But in this new global economy, it's not an easy thing to do. How do we do it? Who controls it? It's a separate question. We really need to look at that. But we need to understand that we're living in a world today that's very different from in the past. It used to be that you had the globe, the world, with around 200 countries, and a few governments were very powerful, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, the United States. But today, the whole economy really, and the geopolitics of this globe are run by what we might envision as big clouds that drift around the globe. These are the big corporations. And they basically follow no particular sets of laws. They go to whichever country has the laws that are most favorable to them. They don't recognize national boundaries. And we do need to set up systems for protecting the consumer from that, protecting resources from that. It's got to be a different system. We have to recognize that we're in a very different reality today. In many respects, we're in a situation that's similar to when city-states became nations, and you had to set up whole new systems for dealing with commerce when that happened.
John, we've only got a few seconds here, but in the wake of the credit crisis, one of Obama's top advisors, of course, quite famously said, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. Have we wasted it? Do you think we've missed the moment for any kind of meaningful change you're talking about?
I think we have missed it to a large degree, but there's still opportunities to go back in, and that's what I write about in my books and talk about in speeches. I think we have a tremendous opportunity here to come up with something much, much better. I'm all for maximizing profits, but let's do it while being socially and environmentally responsible. Let's make a better world for my 2.5-year-old grandson and all his brothers and sisters around the planet.
All right, John, great to have you. Now for